Orcs were the minions of the Dark Lords of Middle-earth. They were mostly cruel, corrupt, and had little in the way of morals. But what exactly are the Orcs? Where did they come from? And what were their goals? Now, the Orcs were not one of the original races created by the Valar. No, you see, Morgoth the Valar who decided to turn against Eru Ilúvatar didn't actually have the power to create intelligent life. That was reserved for Ilúvatar and Ilúvatar alone. But Morgoth required an army to dominate Middle-earth, to conquer everything that Eru and the other Valar had created. For this reason, shortly after the Awakening, Morgoth had some of the elves kidnapped. He then tortured and corrupted them, twisting their minds and bodies, turning them against their creators. In Morgoth's first war against the Valar, the Orcs fought side by side with Morgoth's other minions, and upon Morgoth's capture, some Orcs managed to escape. Over the following years, between this and Morgoth's return, the Orcs managed to breed and they swelled in numbers. Now, during the War of Wrath, Morgoth is fully defeated and sentenced to the Void, never to return. A majority of the Orcs who the Maiar saw as abominations were wiped out. However, some did manage to flee west. Now, many of these Orcs spread out and founded their own tribes, where they warred against the other races of Middle-earth and themselves. This included the Pale Gundabad Orc Azog, who would eventually siege the dwarven fortress of Moria. The Orcs were quick to join forces with the likes of Sauron, the new Dark Lord and Morgoth's heir, and he used them as the majority of his forces during the War of the Last Alliance. However, again the Orcs were defeated and on the losing side when Sauron was cut down by Isildur. However, the Orcs continued to have faith that eventually the Dark Lord would return and lead them. The Orcs continued to fight bitterly against the other inhabitants of Middle-earth, particularly seizing control of new territories and using them as vast breeding pits. Meanwhile, Sauron secretly grew in power. Eventually, he managed to gain enough control to begin construction on his Tower of Barad-dûr and take complete control of Mordor. Now, as we see, the Orcs fought tenaciously against the enemies of the Dark Lord, however it was ultimately in vain. Sauron still lost and the ring was destroyed, and with it, his magic went also. The war left a huge portion of the Orcs in Mordor devastated, with majority of their numbers crumbling after the destruction of Barad-dûr. Now, what happened to the Orcs after the destruction of the ring is somewhat unknown, although we know that they had little to no success. They lost their prized fortress of Moria, which had been a breeding ground for the Orcs for an age, so we can assume that they never truly managed to regain their strength without a Dark Lord to follow. It's very likely that they were hunted down following Sauron's defeat. Leaderless, the men, elves and dwarves would see this as a prime time to remove this problem that had hindered their people for centuries. So, Orcs didn't function on the basis of laws. It was a hierarchy made up of the strongest and most cunning. Without money, it was mainly an honor-based system. The powerful take from and control the weak. This led to countless power plays and infighting between the various Orcs and their tribes. However, the Dark Lord was happy to see the most cunning and strong purge the weak and climb the ranks. It made sure his army was ever-changing and consisted of only the most brutal of their kind. Now, there are many different types of Orcs. You see, mere things such as the environments did have their effects. Over time, they just evolved to best fit them, being bigger or having better eyesight. As well as this, some Orcs, such as the Uruk, which translates as Orc folk in Black speech, were specifically bred by Saruman, one of the Dark Lord's puppets, to be stronger and faster than standard Orcs. To call the Orcs uncivilized isn't entirely accurate. They created their own tribes and dark traditions, many of them in homage to the Dark Lord and ferocious in nature. The early Orcs didn't even have their own language until Sauron created Black speech, an Orc language designed to unify all of his forces. However, it didn't entirely catch on. The Orcs had little interest in learning, instead most of them sticking to a basic tongue with a few Black speech phrases thrown in. Ultimately, the Orcs were incredibly warlike. They didn't care about crafting or culture, merely war and vengeance against the other races who had shunned them. They were the descendants of tortured people, twisted into following those who wronged them. Calling them necessarily evil would not be entirely correct, however their goals to slaughter and conquer and unyielding cruelty make them valuable puppets to both Morgoth and Sauron, and made them despised by the rest of the people of Middle-earth. But what do you think of the Orcs? Heartless monsters or misunderstood victims? Thanks for watching, I hope you enjoyed. If so, please remember to like and sub for more Lord of the Rings content, as it's always really appreciated and helps the channel grow. Also, follow me on Twitter at The Lore Guy for regular updates. Thanks for watching, I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time.